This is Lisa Stone with Parenting Aces, and I'm sitting here with Pat Harrison. Pat, thanks so much for taking time to talk with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Pat and I go way back to junior tennis days back in Shreveport, Louisiana, and as you guys know, Pat is the father of Ryan and Christian Harrison. What you may not know is that Pat also has a daughter, Madison, who is going to be playing college tennis in the fall for University of Kansas. So, Pat, tell me a little bit about the difference in having a child go the professional tennis route versus go the college tennis route.
Well, it's all a matter of where you feel like they are when they're coming out of their junior years, getting into the teenage years. And my boys, fortunately, were in a good position to have an agency that signed with them. And I played college tennis. I don't recommend that route very often. It was the right route for my boys because you want to make sure that if they don't make it, you have a lot of provisions in the contracts to make sure they're taken care of, so you kind of cover those bases before you allow them to make a decision like that. Going to college tennis was the right route for Madison. She likes to be around the social end of it, likes the team atmosphere, and that's a level that I knew she was ready to play. So she's excited about it and looking forward to being a Jayhawk.
That's awesome. Was she looking at any other programs besides Kansas?
She took official visits to Ole Miss, Tulane, and Missouri. Thought she was leaning toward Missouri a little bit. I had worked at Nukes back when I was there with the assistant coach there, Jason Potoff. But we met Todd, ended up really taking a liking to him. He had worked at Texas Tech the year before with a friend of mine that I'd grown up with that Tim Siegel, who's the men's co-chair. And he came highly recommended, and she ended up taking a visit there and loved it and then signed the next week.
That's fantastic. So will you be making the trek to Kansas to watch her play?
Quite often. Yeah, she's still a daddy's girl, and, a lot of people know the boys, but I probably have spent more time with my baby than the boys. And, she loves to play, and still hit with her an hour or two every day, and looking forward to going up to Lawrence and seeing her quite often, actually.
Great. And I know your boys have lots on their plate coming up, and Ryan's competing in the qualies for the French this week. He had a big win this morning, and how's it looking for him to get in?
Well, hopefully he can get through two more. He played a solid local French guy this morning that was ranked around 180. He plays James Ward, a British kid tomorrow that he's beaten before, but on clay and struggling with confidence a little bit for the past year. Hopefully he can fight his way through it and start working his way back up into the top 50 again. But Christian is back hitting balls, hasn't played since August, had two hip surgeries and a shoulder surgery, and was playing well at the time, beat Alejandro Falla, his best win, and Ilya Marchenko, and lost a very tough match to John Isner, and then hasn't played since. So hopefully we can get him back on the court in the next 4 or 5 months.
Talk a little bit about the challenges of being coach and dad for both the boys at the professional level and for your daughter at the collegiate level.
It's all a different, the mindset, the work ethic, the discipline, the guidance is all the same. The talent level kind of dictates, where they're headed. But the challenges are getting them to grow up a little sooner when they decide to turn pro at a young age, understanding the maturity, the responsibility that goes with turning pro at a young age, and keeping kind of things in order off the court and not just working hard on the court. You have a little more leeway when you're going to college, and a couple of more years of mental and physical development there.
Mm-hmm. And so how do you separate the dad role and the coach role?
It's difficult. Honestly, I think it's impossible. It's when you spend every day of your life going to work, with your kids, because they started homeschooling in 5th grade. They were all 3 straight A students, and Madison maintained that right through high school. Ryan and Christian did through 5th grade. I was fortunate because my wife was a high school business teacher and a computer teacher. And taught high school for 3 years, so for her to homeschool them was kind of a fortunate situation for us, and keeping up with that. But it's difficult when you spend 24 hours a day with all of your children. They go to work with you, they come home with you, and when you're coaching them at the same time. And Ryan, jumped up in the top 100 by the time he was 18, and yet he's living at home. And so, finding that fine line between pushing them too hard and not pushing them enough, you always kind of got to balance it. It's always going to lead to some friction at times. It's not possible not to, especially as teenagers when they're making that transition, from childhood to adulthood. So you're going to end up in some arguments with your father when you spend 24 hours a day with him trying to make that transition. But it's part of it. It's good, and that going in, and I've been fortunate to get some help with Ryan when he decided he didn't want to listen to his dad much anymore, and hopefully he'll get his ranking back up where it was before. Yeah.
I know family is huge to the Harrisons. Y'all have a big family, and y'all are all pretty close. Talk about the support that you get from your siblings, from your nieces and nephews, and now you got great nieces and nephews. How has that helped you as dad and coach as your children have all three come up through the ranks?
Well, it's exciting because my brother and three sisters, as you know, you grew up with us, and you and I graduated high school together. So, and your dad did my two back surgeries. But I've known you since we were almost born. But it's great. I think to be successful at anything in life, you have to have a good support group around you, whether it's an individual sport like tennis or anything you do in life. I mean, you have to have people that support it. The most successful people in the world predominantly come from, solid family background.
Sure. Sure.
And it's my kids have been fortunate. My brother Mark, Valerie, Vicky, Patty, my twin sister, they all text and call all the time. They come to a lot of the tournaments and see. My niece Mary and her husband went over to Australia to watch Ryan at the Australian. So he's always got a solid support group with the family there.
I think that's huge. I adore the Harrisons, you know that, and you guys are doing an amazing job with your three kids. If you could give one piece of advice to parents of young juniors coming up, what would that be?
Just make sure it's their idea to play 6-7 hours a day. I was fortunate. A lot of people thought I pushed my kids growing up, and I never have. I was harsh, don't get me wrong, but being harsh and making them do it right and pushing them to do it, I never had to do. Ryan and Christian's punishment when they were growing up, when they got in trouble or got their cell phone taken away, was I could punish them by not allowing them to play tennis for a week. And that destroyed them, and so I was fortunate. I'm not one of those that believes in burnout. I don't think you can play too much if you love it, and they loved it growing up. I think that's why you see, so much success of people in basketball and baseball. They do it all day, every day, and I don't look at tennis any different,
Well, thanks so much for talking with me. Enjoy your time at the NCAAs. It's so great to run into a familiar face here.
I'm glad to be here, and I was very honored. My college coach, I played 4 years of college tennis, and actually I was on Billy Chadwick's first team, and he's going into the Hall of Fame tomorrow. And then I transferred and played for Coach Wadley at Oklahoma State, and he's going into the Hall of Fame tomorrow. So I was fortunate to play college tennis myself for two Hall of Fame coaches who are getting inducted tomorrow night.
And you're going to be given the introduction.
Yeah, Coach Wadley, it was quite an honor. He, and all the players he's had in 40 years, asking me to give the 3-minute introduction speech for his Hall of Fame induction was a big honor. And I've stayed in touch with him, and he's been, next to my parents, he's been the biggest influence in my life. The way I coach, coaching philosophy, all the way around. And to this day, he still calls me every couple of weeks, or I call him and ask if I need anything, how I'm doing. So it's quite an honor.
Very cool. Well, enjoy yourself, and I just love seeing you, and thanks for talking with me.
Hey, thanks for having me, and I love you and your family, and as we said before, we grew up together, and through junior tennis, through college tennis, and your father, people may not know, when Ryan was 6, 7, 8 years old, your father grew up at the club I was at in Shreveport, Louisiana, and played Ryan and Christian many practice matches.
Yeah, and he values every minute of that, so he still talks about it.
So it's wonderful to see you, and look forward to it.
Thanks, Pat.